Hi, welcome back to Books on the Go. I'm Anna. I hope you're doing well and not too affected by the coronavirus, self-isolation and physical distancing and so on. I think here we're about to start homeschooling any day now, so I might lose some time over the next few weeks, but I thought I'd do a quick video today and just an update on what's coming up on the podcast. So, and I've been meaning to do this, apologies that I haven't done one earlier. I did one a while ago and I think people found it useful in terms of if they want to read along or just to know, what's coming up. So I've been meaning to do one before now, but here we are. So the first book is You Will Be Safe Here by Damian Barr. And Amanda and I recorded this episode yesterday, so that will go up. I might even put it up later this week, just because I know a lot of people are at home and it's sort of a strange time, and podcasts are something you can still listen to and enjoy. So I might do it later this week, if not Sunday, Monday, this episode will be up. And Amanda and I, just to give you a sneak preview of that episode, we both absolutely loved this book and really enjoyed it. And Damian Barr was here for Adelaide Writers Week earlier this month, so I had the chance to meet him and have a chat with him in Adelaide, and heard him speak about this book and some fascinating stories about the research that he did in South Africa. So it's a story that's set in South Africa in two time periods. One is 1901 in the Second Boer War, and it's Sarah van der Walt who's in a concentration camp run by the British. And then the second main story is Willem, who's a 16-year-old boy, and his mother and her boyfriend send him to a camp. I think it's the New Dawn, safari training camp for boys, and they say we'll turn boys into men, but it's actually a really cruel, awful place to be, and his life is in danger there. And that was inspired by a true story, and those camps apparently are still running in parts of South Africa. So it sounds very bleak, but it actually isn't. It's a wonderful, uplifting read. There are some harrowing scenes, but it's beautifully engaging and wonderful characters and dialogue, and just a really interesting story. So I highly recommend it. But for more on that one, tune into the next episode, which will be coming up soon. So that's You Will Be Safe Here. And then, this is exciting as well, Annie and I will be discussing Weather by Jenny Offill. So this is the new book by Jenny Offill, who wrote Department of Speculation, which I only read, I think, over the Christmas holidays. So I only read that very late. I was very late to that party, but really loved it. And so I was excited to see that Weather was coming out. And then I've heard all good reviews, but some people have said it's quite bleak, and that if you have anxiety about climate change, or we could now add, global pandemics and all sorts of things to the mix, but that this sort of can make you feel even more anxious. So I won't say how I found it. I just finished reading it a few days ago, but Annie and I are catching up next Wednesday, I believe. So we'll be recording that episode, and that will go up soon after that. So stay tuned. I know that Annie did enjoy it, so that's a teaser for you. But that's Weather by Jenny Offill, and again, it's just a very short novel, so it's easy to read in a day or two. So that's always good when you see what else we've got coming up. So the next one, which I know nothing about, is Underland by Robert Macfarlane. And Amanda and I are doing this in a couple of weeks. I bought this because I read so many good reviews. I hadn't heard of it much last year, but then at the end of the year, when all the, the Financial Times or the New York Times do all of their critics give their favourite books of the year or their top books of the year, and this was on more than one person's list, and so I went from not having heard of it to reading about it everywhere, and it just had such rave reviews that I was really intrigued to pick it up. So it's called Underland. I believe it's a non-fiction, and it's about the Earth's underworlds as they exist in myth literature, memory, and the land itself. And it's a sequel to his bestseller, The Old Ways, which I haven't read. So I feel like I'm at a disadvantage here, but hopefully Robert Macfarlane will just pull me through. This is a voyage into our relationship with darkness, burial, and our planet's past and future. So, none of that, it's not something that I'd immediately rush out to buy. It doesn't grab me straight away, but just because of people saying that it was so compelling and readable, and that it was, among their favourite books of last year, I was intrigued. So Amanda and I will be talking about it. And it is quite long, so I hope it is very engaging and readable, because otherwise this could be a slog. But it sounds wonderful, and it might be another book. I've been reading these books with themes of trees and nature recently, with the Overstory by Richard Powers, and then City of Trees by Sophie Cunningham, and I think there was another one, but it might just be part of this theme that I'm inadvertently developing about nature. So I don't know. I'll keep you posted, but stay tuned in a few weeks for Underland on the podcast. And then we just keep getting larger and larger. So apart from reading that quite heavy doorstopper, I've then got The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel, which is 1,000 pages, and it is just really enormous. But how could you not read it? So I bought this on the day that it came out. I'm really excited. I loved Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Bodies, and this is the third in the trilogy about Thomas Cromwell and Henry VIII. And so we're up to the third queen. He's beheaded Anne Boleyn, and now it is Jane Seymour. So I'm only very early on. I've started reading it. I'm on page 60. I've got this very cute lobster bookmark. I think it's a lobster, or is it a scorpion? Anyway, a seafood bookmark, and I'm loving it. But I'm only up to page 60 of 1,000, so I'm just starting to feel a bit nervous about the reading that I have ahead of me. And then Amanda and I are reading The Girl Who Wrote Loneliness by Kyung-Sook Shin, and translated by Ha-Yun Jung. So this was recommended by Matthew Sharappa. I think it was part of a read-along last year for Women in Translation Month. So that was August. We're now March. So I'm getting there. I am a little bit behind, but I had it on my list. It wasn't available in our bookshops in Australia, or in Adelaide, I should say. I had to order it, and so eventually it came, and then it's gone onto my shelf, and I'm trying to read through my shelf at the moment. So and this is the sort of reason, because I've got all these amazing sounding books that I've been dying to get to and haven't had a chance until now. So better late than never. So this is The Girl Who Wrote Loneliness. I don't know anything about it. It says here, homesick, a teenage girl has arrived in Seoul to work in a factory. Her family's in the countryside, and she works long days on the stereo assembly line, struggling through the night school every evening, and wants to become a writer. And so this is richly autobiographical, so that's interesting. It's the conflict and confusion Shin faces as she confronts her past and the social change of the past half century. And in Korea, it's been cited as one of the most important literary novels of the decade. It cements her legacy as one of the most insightful and exciting authors of her generation, was one of NPR's best books of the year, and a New York Times Book Review editor's pick. So this sounds fabulous. And I loved Please Look After Mother by Kyung-Sook Shin, which I read a year ago. That was really beautiful, just beautifully written, observed, and really easy to read, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I also read last year At Dusk by Hwang-Sok Yong, which also talks about that sudden, or that quick development in South Korea and in Seoul in particular, the rapid rise of apartment buildings and the cityscape changing dramatically and people moving in sort of economic groups and some people becoming well off, but just the fast pace of how that has all happened and the impact in society. And so it'll be interesting to sort of read this in conjunction with that, and I'm really looking forward to it. But I do have 1,000 pages and another 500 pages of Underland and The Mirror and the Light to go before I can read it. So that I think this will be just a delightful, sweeping novel to immerse myself in when I finished these other chunksters. But then after that, we are reading Another Woman in Translation, Vernon Subutex 2 by Virginie Despentes, and I hope Amanda will be okay with this because I have read the first one. I don't know if she has, but this again was on my shelf and we're trying to read through the shelf while I'm on my book ban, which we know won't last very long. But again, just a book I've been dying to get to, haven't had the time, and I loved the first one. It's a really fun story set in Paris with a drifter. Well, he's not a drifter, but he's a bit of a rogue. Vernon Subutex. He was a record shop proprietor and he's now a homeless messiah and guru. He's been in the park and he also has some confessional tapes of a celebrity called Alex Bleach. That's sort of his only asset in case he can sell that to the media. But he's also got a mystery to solve and so on. And they're just fun characters, really good, gritty, grungy, rock and roll Paris, and easy reading. So I'm looking forward to this one as well. So that is what's coming up on the podcast. Let me know. I've just realized we've inadvertently got some women in translation themes. We've got one non-fiction. We probably should have another non-fiction in the mix, but never mind. It's still plenty to keep us going. So let me know what you've been reading. I know that Jacqueline at 6 Minutes for Me is doing Aussie April in April, which is coming up soon, and none of these are Australian. So my next job is to go back to my shelves and pull out my Australian books. So I'll keep you posted on how I go with that. But let me know what you're reading in the next few weeks, and if you've read any of these, I'd love to know what you thought, and I'll see you soon. Bye.